Man, this past year has been the toughest year that I have experienced in my life. Yes, I made it through, and it did not look pretty. A lot of the time it did not look pretty. Hey Village, this is another big video that I'm going to work my way through, talking about some pretty heavy and important topics. And if you're new here, just know that I like to be able to share my experience from a really transparent, open perspective and share my lessons learned through my experiences being a foster caregiver and juggling life and everything like that, in the hopes that it will either inspire or support someone in a similar position. If that's something that interests you, I do encourage you to subscribe and put your notifications on so that you can be alerted when I post new videos. And for those of you who have been around for a while, especially those who have followed me on TikTok and Instagram, where I've shared a lot more frequently over this last year has been tough for me. It has been really tough. Like, as a foster caregiver, the things that I have navigated with an aging out teen, with a teen that comes back and then leaves very suddenly, all during this past year, I was also dealing with a separation and a divorce while actively fostering. And I first just want to start off by saying that I am human first. I am a normal person just like you, very much just like you. I just choose to share my experiences. That doesn't make me any different. That doesn't make me immune to life. And so divorce happens. You don't get married planning that you're gonna split up. So when you are a married or partnered person who is going into foster care and choosing to be a foster caregiver, it is possible that you're gonna be navigating a lot of the same life challenges while being a foster caregiver. Like, two things can coexist. And I also just wanna explicitly state that while I'm gonna be sharing about things that may have happened over this last year and during this process and experience, I'm not going to be talking about the nitty-gritty of my divorce. This is solely to be able to share and hopefully have somebody learn from it, or, just have a bit of understanding of what somebody might be going through if they're in a similar situation. I'll start off by sharing my story, just so you know kind of what I experienced, which will lead to kind of my lessons learned or tips for others who might be navigating this. So I had just celebrated my 11-year wedding anniversary. We both agreed to say yes to a teenage placement who was actually a returning placement, and kind of, that did influence the fact that it was a child who had stayed with us before in foster care. That did influence the yes or no, because at the time, I was actually ready to take a break, refocus, and take care of myself and lean into some, things I was looking to create in my career. But this particular teen had specifically asked if we would take them in when they returned to care. So we did say yes, and they stayed with us for quite a few months. And during that time, things shifted in my marriage. The decision was made to have a separation with my partner and I. And when that decision was made, of course, I knew that there would be an impact, not just on the family and my, permanent children. I have 2 children, one that's 8 years old and one that is 5. It was also going to impact that teenager who was staying with us. The separation and the physical separation of my partner and myself, I did communicate with this teenager, and leading up to the separation, I did have conversations to reassure them, because there was an energy and a dynamic shift in the home and in how we were interacting. And so there were conversations, because this was an older teen, there was a history there. And so I was able to have open conversations about, hey, this is what is occurring, and just so that they didn't feel like, being a child who is experiencing foster care and is in a strange home, they've already gone through the trauma of whatever brought them into care, and then to sit there and be with possibly partnered parents who are navigating disagreements, a dynamic shift like this, and possible separation and divorce. That is, these kids are going to be aware of it. Like, they're aware of a lot more than I think a lot of people give them credit for. So I chose to have those open conversations about what was occurring. And so when the separation happened, it was not a shock. It was actually probably more of a shock to my 8 and 5-year-olds because they were not aware of any, kind of dynamic shift. So as a human navigating this complicated time in my life, I am trying to take care of myself, trying to handle a separation and divorce as best I knew how at that point, making sure that my 8 and 5-year-olds were supported, making sure my foster teen was supported. I did my best. Definitely was not perfect, but made it through. I did make sure to talk to my caseworker and let them know what was occurring as it was happening. The teen who was placed with me at that time, they have a really solid support team, and I was in communication with them, and they were kind of wrapped up as best they could be with the circumstances. But it was a challenge. Man, this past year has been the toughest year that I have experienced in my life. Yes, I made it through, and it did not look pretty. A lot of the time it did not look pretty, but damn it, I made it through. When the time was right, I did go through the process with my social worker to update home study details, update my license through the state. It's a little bit of a blur because it was such a blip with everything else that was occurring. It didn't feel like a lot of work, I'll be honest. It didn't feel like a lot of work to have my license updated, or I didn't have extensive conversations with my caseworker. There wasn't a lot of paperwork. This is gonna probably depend on your agency and the relationship and how long you've been a foster parent, how that looks, but that's really what it looked like to me. It was very minimal. And then I did feel incredibly supported by this teen who was placed with me. Definitely felt supported with her case team, checking in, making sure that I was supported, not because I think they did care about me, but also they cared about this teen, and everyone was definitely checking in. But I do feel that if they didn't think that I was able to navigate this, and that it would have been a detriment, I think they were weighing the options of, okay, is it better for this teen to stay here and go through this, or be moved to a different place? And that's where I think that's a collective decision. There was no co-parenting discussion. I did have to navigate conversations with previous placements who I stay in contact with, and they were shocked and surprised and, sad, disappointed. They looked at my relationship that I had they looked up to that. They believed that they were witnessing a healthy and strong relationship, and it just didn't end the way that they would have wanted. So the ripple effect of this was great. And so just want to mention that as well. And when it comes to lessons learned, what I found worked or didn't work, any kind of tips, I guess, as you're navigating this. I know that it's a cliche of put your oxygen mask on first, but it is so, so critical to be taking care of yourself, or knowing kind of when you're not okay, because it is completely okay to not be okay, especially as a foster caregiver. And if you're active and you have children placed with you, you do not have to navigate this alone. There are caseworkers who can be there, direct you to resources, the same way that you would take a placement call and determine if your family was ready to say yes or no. I think at critical moments like this, and big life-changing events like divorce, this is a moment to check in and say, is this in the best interest of the children who are placed with me? And the answer might be no. There may need to be a displacement, and as much as caregivers and caseworkers do not want to see that happen, that's a team decision. Let's say there's only a few weeks left where the kids are going to be transitioned home. Okay, yeah, keep them here. Don't disrupt them. But let that be a team decision. Don't hold that and let it weigh on you. Know that you have caseworkers, and the children and the families have caseworkers for this reason. If you're navigating this and there's a child placed with you, be aware of what their trauma triggers are and their history and what they've been through, because if this is something that could trigger them, or they would fear that, oh, this is going to mean that I'm going to leave, or, it's my fault. Gosh, there are so many different like stories a child is going to, possibly come up with in their head when experiencing this with a family, let alone a, family that is a temporary family. Be aware and be aware of their, mental and emotional, development, so that you are having appropriate conversations with them. Reach out to your team, inform your agency, your caseworker, inform them early. I have a really good relationship with my caseworker, where as things are happening in my life that I feel would impact my license or my decision to continue, or accept placements, I have a good relationship with my caseworker where I talk to them. And so there's a level of like trust built into that. I encourage early and open communication with your agency and your caseworker. You may have to do some paperwork with your agency. Yes, inform them early, and then maybe the paperwork is going to happen a little bit later. In my case, actually, there really wasn't a huge conversation, but if you're partnered and you are legally separating and one of you is wanting to continue to foster and the other is not, that's kind of an easier decision and process, where that adult that is, leaving, choosing not to be a foster caregiver any longer, they're just removed from the license. They're kind of just opting out. So that's the simple way that this can occur. I would imagine that if you have a partnered, if you're partnered and both of you want to continue to be a foster caregiver, and this is where it gets complicated, because let's say that you both want to continue to foster, but you don't have any current placements. Well, maybe that's going to look like some paperwork so that the person who is staying in the main residence, their home study is updated, but that new person, once they get their new living space, they would need to create and complete a separate home study. And so that might take some time. That's going to look different when it comes to if you have children placed with you and you are both wanting to continue to foster. You're going to be going through that process and figuring out co-parenting with a foster child. And this is where I actually don't know how this works. I imagine that would be really tough to be a child experiencing foster care and going through co-parenting, while also possibly, depending on the case and the family, but possibly going through visitation with their primary parent. I'm definitely curious if there are people out there who have information or have been through that. Please share information and your experience in the comments, just so we can get that conversation started. And I have to say I'm lucky that that really wasn't ever a hurdle I had to go through. Co-parenting was never kind of on the table, so that was pretty simple. And then I'll also mention, decide what you want to do moving forward. So once you get through and you feel like you're on the other side, decide what you want to do moving forward. If you want to take a break but keep your license open, I would definitely encourage taking a break. This is a huge life event. It would be hard for me to see someone, I guess I would say I would worry about somebody who would go through a separation, divorce, and just continue to foster without any break. I would be worried about them. Just know it's okay to take a break. And do you want to keep your license open? Keep doing the paperwork that you have to do, the training to keep your certification. I would encourage that. Maybe buy yourself a little bit of time to like navigate through this life event before deciding, anything big. But also if you are really going through it and you need to let your license kind of lapse, that's okay. You're not a failure or anything like that. If you choose again to jump into foster caregiving, you would just start back at the beginning. It's going to vary depending on your state, your agency, all of those things, but it's never too late to say, hey, maybe I want to revisit this. For me, I'm personally choosing to take a pretty extended break from permanent placements. I'm focused on just kind of stabilizing, making sure I'm taking care of myself, checking in with previous kids who have stayed. I am going to keep my license active, and I'm going to reassess as the next year unfolds. In my previous video, I shared that during this whole thing, I was going through getting huge news. My life was turned upside down. It felt like going through a separation, a divorce, having a teen come back, having them leave again, having, aging out and leaving, and then coming back and then leaving again. I have dealt with a lot this year. There have been times where I'm like, am I going to be able to continue to foster as a single parent? Do I want to? Am I going to be able to navigate, having 2 kids, working full time, to be the village and then continue to foster? I just don't know. So I'm giving myself time to figure that out. And in the meantime, I am going to continue to share about different experiences. And I'm also going to bring other people on to share what their experience is as a foster family. So look for some fun kind of vlog family type content coming up. Also, you'll see people that I'm going to bring in for them to share their story. If you want to share yours, please drop a comment below and let me know. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe, turn your notifications on. You guys being around and sticking with me through this is honestly, it's like kind of indescribable, but it's like a really big warm hug. And just know that it matters, it really matters. And until next time, thanks for watching.